So friends, we are going to begin the service for Dr. Shulman. I would ask if you have a cellular device to please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today will be Rabbi Jeffrey Weil and Cantor Daniel Gale from the Ezra Habonim, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation. In just a moment, I'm going to invite the family into the chapel. I would ask you to please rise if you're able when the family comes in. Thank you.
Ashrei ha'ish, asher lo halach ba'atzat risha'im, u'v'derech chata'im lo amad, v'moshav leitzim lo yeshav, ki im b'torat Adonai chevtzo, u'v'torata yehegeh, v'torato yehegeh yomam v'layla. Verses from the first Psalm. Ashrei ha'ish, happy is the person who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken a wayward path, or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, Torat Adonai, a holy teaching, is that person's delight. And that person studies that teaching all the time. Such a person is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, its foliage never fades, its fruit always flourishes. From the psalmist. It's an appropriate opening verses for this service, this funeral service for Dr. Stanford T. Shulman. He was steadfast like a tree planted by a stream of water. He studied a holy teaching, in other words, a teaching that brought light and life and healing to everyone. He had integrity, like these verses convey. That was Stan. Death has taken him. We all grieve in a world that is darker now. For his beloved family, in tears and in silence, is a loneliness and an absence. Such is loss. Thankfully, our scriptures have something to say for all the times of our lives. They have something to say for the happy times and for the sad times as well. And at a time like this, we turn to scripture, especially to the 23rd Psalm. You'll find the 23rd Psalm in your handouts. And my colleague, Cantor Daniel Gale, will chant the psalm in Hebrew, and then we'll read it together in English. Cantor Gale.
Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roi lo hechsar binhot deshe yarvitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni al nafshi yishovei yanecheni v'maglei tzedek למען נשמו גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא יראה כי אתה עמדי שבדך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי דשנת ושמן ראשי כוסי רוויה כוסי רוויה אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
The 23rd Psalm, we read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Before the service began in the family room, with the family, we did the mitzvah, the ritual of kriya. Kriya is the tearing. Some tear garments, some tear ribbons, but it's a tearing. And it acknowledges the tear that we feel inside when we tear something on the outside, and that's what our biblical forebears did. When something calamitous would happen in their lives, they would do an act of tearing. And the blessing that we recite with the Kriya ritual acknowledges God as the true judge, the Dayan Ha'amet, the judge of truth. And the verses that we're about to, or I'll share in a moment, have a similar theme, acknowledging, or perhaps just hoping that everything that happens in this wild world somehow happens as it's supposed to happen, that sort of everything is unfurling and being unveiled in a way that makes sense, even when it is beyond our comprehension, that there's some truth and justice to it all. For everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to discard, a time to keep, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time for silence, and a time for speaking. And so we speak. It's my honor to share some reflections on Stan Shulman's life, and then friends and family will do so as well. In the Torah portion, the parts of the Torah that we're reading now at this time of year, we're reading about the great stories of our matriarchs and our patriarchs. And these are amazing stories for a couple of reasons, well, many, many reasons. Among them, that they're both like grand stories and granular stories. They're small stories and they're sweeping stories all at the same time. Like we explore the creation of our nation, of the Jewish nation, through one very small family. So all these things are happening together, intertwined at once, the small and the great. And I wonder if these figures of the early generations of the covenanted family, the family that's covenanted to God, to play out a holy mission on this earth, I wonder, even though you know that they knew it, but they really comprehend that their lives, the decisions that they were making, their intra-family relationships and so forth, if they were aware that all that was also promoting something grand, that everything that they were doing was not merely for their families, but for generations to come as well. Through their efforts, their decisions, their brilliance, they influenced myriads, legions, and generations. Were they aware of that? This is the case, though, for Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. And this is also the legacy, the case, the situation for the man that we honor today, Dr. Stanford Shulman. For just as Stan loved and cared for his own, Claire and Debbie and Liz and Edward, Jeff, Tony, Kris, all the folks here, his brother, Alan, and so forth, just as he loved and cared for the family, loved ones, colleagues, and so forth, he also really literally influenced the world. His granular, if you will, his family focus was one part, and an additional part, sort of a simultaneous part, was what he did for the world through his work as a physician, researcher, author, and so forth. He affects his own, and he affects the legions as well. Stan spent most of his life here in Chicago, but he was born in Kalamazoo, son of Clara and Edward. His dad, Edward, was an engineer for the highway system, and the small family would follow wherever his work would lead. But Edward, his dad, was eager to serve during wartime, and little boy Stan would point to a picture of a ship and say, "Daddy on boat," which is so cute and poignant as well. And I like Daddy on boat. I know that later on he was an advocate of very direct, clear, concise writing. So Daddy on boat does it. Precocious. Edward returned home, but he became sick with pancreatic cancer, and he died when his son was only 6 years old. By the time Stan was in 4th grade, he and his mom, Clara, had moved to Toledo. And for one semester, he was in a large class with a cute girl, Clara. I don't know if you've seen the photograph of that class picture. I have. They're a couple of rows apart. Clara's on the top row because she was taller at the time. And they had no recollection of each other during the semester that Stan was in that class. Stan was growing up. As a boy, he'd spent a lot of time with his beloved Aunt Esther and Uncle Sam for weeks during the summer in Michigan and more. Even lived with them for a while. They always remained close. He was a smart kid, an algebra whiz. He would challenge his mind by memorizing license plates, for instance. He was born during baseball season, and he loved the game. His team, and I know there's part of the fan base right here because I see it in your hats, the Detroit Tigers, that was his team. A steadfast fan was Stan, devoted through thick and thin. He once told me that he had only two complaints in life: when it was cold outside and when the Tigers were losing. And as we know, it's often cold in Chicago. And as we know, the Tigers often lose. So it's a wonder he was as satisfied a man as he was. But that devotion illustrates something important about Stan Shulman. His steadfastness, as I mentioned before. He was a loyal person. This applied to baseball, and this applied to all aspects of his life. He was devoted to his heritage, to Judaism, to the Jewish people, for sure. He was a devoted hobbyist as well, a philatelist. That's stamp collecting, but philatelist sounds like fatalist, and fate would come knocking on the door. For when he was a sophomore at high school, Scott High School, there she was, the girl from fourth grade, Clara. No recollection of one to the other. And so he asked, also in his characteristically direct way, he asked a friend, "Who's that girl?" That girl, Claire, may have been dating another kid at the time, a minor detail. But her parents knew quality, and they told her also directly, "You're going out with Stan Shulman." Claire understood that this was a good, wise move, and she also liked that he rolled up the sleeves of his shirt. That was cool, she said. And so in 1957, these high school sophomores, they knew that they were set for life. So confident, in fact, that Stan signed Claire's yearbook to the future Mrs. S. That's bold. Meanwhile, Stan's mom, Clara, had married Frank Tarschis, and Stan became a big brother, an admired big brother to Alan, from whom we will hear soon. And Stan graduated from high school, valedictorian, and headed to University of Cincinnati. He, at the time, was pursuing sports journalism, and the teams at University of Cincinnati were good teams to report on. And he would travel with these excellent teams, but there was something about the sports writer's life that he had observed on the road that did not appeal to him. So he changed directions, which is a good thing for everyone. It was off to medical school, University of Chicago. Stan and Claire married in 1964, and they raised a family. For several years, Stan and Claire and Debbie and Liz and Ed lived in Gainesville, Florida, about 9 years, and then they returned to Chicago, here, for Stan's long tenure, especially at Lurie Children's Hospital, of course. His medical career, that is well known. His reputation, of course, absolutely stellar. Recently, not too long ago, someone realizing that who Debbie's father was, referred to Stan, and this is down in Florida, hundreds of miles away, referred to Stan as that rock star doctor. A star, absolutely. Stellar, as I said, but without the self-promotion or for any desire, really, other than to contribute, to learn, to absorb, to tend to publish, to contribute, to help people. That's what he did. He did as a leader in pediatric infectious diseases, and especially in his pioneering research into Kawasaki disease. And one of his fellow infectious disease doctors and a fellow congregant at our synagogue, Dr. Alan Harris, I was speaking to Alan about Stan, and he referred to Stan as a Renaissance man in the field. What they'd call, he said, that Stan was a quadruple threat for excelling in patient care, teaching, research, and administration. It's amazing. And writing, too, of course. Volumes, of articles, contributing chapters and writing articles, hundreds of them, and of course, the history of Children's Memorial in Chicago. A rare combination and honestly tremendous, prodigious outputs of important work. Stan was very focused, always on his work, including at home. There was downtime, yes, for sure. In the mornings, he'd read the sports pages and the comics, laughing out loud to Doonesbury and Chew. I think I could have guessed the Doonesbury one in particular, knowing Stan. At night, he'd come home, he'd read other sections of the paper, he'd do the crossword puzzle perhaps, pore through medical journals, write, just work, play Scrabble, listen to the beloved Tigers on the radio. He did not, get into medical TV shows, maybe that's a physician thing, but he did like MASH, and to his kids, he was Hawkeye, complete with the puns and the one-liners and everything else. Their Evanston home was certainly spacious enough, but the family would gather at the table together, Stan often helping Debbie, Liz, and Edward with math, so forth. And thinking about that time, it's not hard to imagine Stan at work. It's easy to imagine him. I never saw him working, but it's easy to imagine him at work, Stan Shulman, careful, methodical. There's a measured aspect to his personality. In addition to the jokes and the warmth and everything else, there's a measured aspect to his personality. It's clear from his handwriting. And I have it right here. Exhibit A. This is the Shulman family application for membership to Niles Township Jewish Congregation, 1979. And his handwriting is very, very neat. Uncharacteristic for a doctor. And they were accepted, by the way, 1979. The Shulmans have been part of our community for 46 years. Debbie, Liz, Edward, and Clara became B'nai Mitzvah on our bima. They're just part of the scene, the Shulmans were. I was always pleased to schmooze with Clara and Stan at our congregational Friday night dinners. They were reliably present, except when they were down warmer climes, Siesta Key. And I've always admired how they were consistently present at Minions, our evening Minions, online or in person for the yurtsites of their parents, Memories for Blessing, and others. And it impressed me that Stan, certainly a man of science, nonetheless often mentioned names of ill people who would benefit from a prayer of healing. Stan was also part of a team at the synagogue that guided us, our congregation, through COVID. His neatness and order was evident in other ways too. It applied even to his indulgences, one of the great ironies. He was neat and orderly even when it came to chocolates. He loved chocolates. He had a shirt that said, if I got this right, I speak chocolates. But even there, he would eat like one square at a time. One M&M, perhaps, and then much later, the next M&M. And yet, ironically, Snickers for lunch. I wonder how a medical professional, someone who's so interested in people's health, justified that culinary decision. Snickers for lunch. He said it contained peanuts, so it's got protein in it at least. And not many stroll around Paris, that gastronomic capital, in search of Snickers, but Stan Shulman did. His work brought him to other destinations as well, occasionally with one of his kids accompanying him. But of course, his consistent company throughout his life, throughout the entire journey, was Clara. A love story indeed. A love story, its seed planted somewhere, somehow in that fourth grade classroom, and then bloomed in the halls of Scott High School, flourished through 61 years of marriage, and blossomed into generations of this family. Their love, Clara and Stan's love, was an evident love, anchored by mutual steadfastness and true honor, zep bazo, one to the other. Our sages asked, Ezehu Mechubad, who is the honored one? Who is the one who should be honored? And their answer is the one who honors all people. We honor Stan Shulman because he honored others. through his dedication to his calling, through which he lifted others up, through which he healed the sick, through which he informed the world, through which he made students more capable and competent. And he honored you, his family, loved ones, by loving you, by making you laugh, by guiding you, by steadfastly accompanying you as well, or us. During the season, friends, we give thanks. And so we give thanks for the man he was, for the example he has shown, for the love and care that he has shared in so many ways. Zichrono livracha, may Stan Shulman's memory always be for blessing. Amen. It's my honor first to call forward colleague and friend, Dr. Ram Yogev.
Claire, thank you for the honor to say a few words about your husband. The Dr. Shulman I knew, the brilliant editor, the stickler for details, would be looking at me right now with a slight smile and a red pen in hand. If he were still here, my remarks would undoubtedly be clearer and in much better English, and the page I am reading from would be a masterpiece of red pen corrections. Yet, I hope that what I have to say from an aching heart will, in its imperfect way, touch yours. We gather here to honor and remember a man who was not only a father, husband, and friend, but also a guiding light in the lives of so many. It feels almost impossible to sum up what Stan meant to all of us in just few words. First and foremost, he was truly a great leader in a world where the word boss can often carry a negative weight. Stan completely refined it. He didn't just manage, he mentored. He had the ability to see the potential in each of us and to nurture it with rare combination of patience and push. I cannot count the number of times Stan stood by me, supporting me through professional challenges and handing me the confidence I needed to pursue them. His guidance forever shaped my career, and I know so many of us in this room became better professionals because of him. But what made his support even more powerful was the person behind the title. Stan had your back unconditionally. If you took a risk and stumbled, he wasn't there with criticism. Instead, he would create a space where it was safe to be ambitious, innovative, and sometimes just to be human and make a mistake. But for me, Stan was not just the boss. He became a friend I could share a concern with, a friend I could laugh with about my silly mistake, a friend who made the good days better and the hard days manageable. I will never forget the time when, after I forcefully challenged a speaker during a national meeting, let's just say I attacked with more passion than protocol, Stan didn't reprimand me, but instead insisted on taking me to dinner. We sat down. He ordered his usual, what he called, well-balanced meal of half a head of lettuce and steak. And with that, he tried to teach me the kinder, more diplomatic way of challenging speakers. Between bites of lettuce and steak, he shared with me his own early missteps, and teaching me about grace and leadership in one meal more than any business book ever could have taught me. That is the man I'm already missing, the mentor who saw a future for me when I couldn't always see for myself, the leader who stood as a shield and a guide, the friend whose absence has left a silence that is both profound and deafening. Stan's legacy is not just the project he completed and the papers he published. It is the incredibly high standard he set for what leadership, loyalty, and friendship truly look like. So thank you, Stan. Thank you for the guidance, the backup, and the friendship. I will carry the lesson you taught me both professionally and personally for the rest of my life. We all will. You are already so deeply meshed. Shalom, Chaver.
Dr. Ugaev, thank you for a very meaningful tribute. Call forward now Stan's brother, Alan Tarschis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Tarschis. Thank you, Claire, Liz, Edward, and Debbie, for allowing me to speak today. For me, this is not about a brother from another mother. That's not our story. Dr. Stanford Taylor Shulman was my brother by a different father. He lost his father, Edward Shulman, far too young, and our mom, Clara Portnoff, lost the love of her life at just 29 years old. Those early losses shaped so much of Stan's path, and they shaped the bond that he and I shared. Because of that, Stan grew up with many influences guiding him. He spent cherished years with Sam and Esther Levitt in Detroit, Michigan. He found support and direction from his stepfather, my father, Frank Tarschis. Of course, somewhere along the way, he ended up with me as his stepbrother. Stan had passion that showed up early, and they stayed with him throughout his life. He started collecting stamps as a young boy, and over his lifetime, he built an impressive collection. However, early on, Stan came home from school one day to find that his baby brother had also found an interest in his stamps. I was licking and sticking his stamps everywhere. I believe Stan ultimately was responsible for me developing a competitive spirit. Every time he could, we played endless games of horse in the backyard, though I never managed to beat him. I must tell all of you that since Stan was the oldest brother, or the oldest in the family, he got my job first. Stan was the very first delivery driver for Dad's auto parts business. Stan got his first paycheck from ABC Auto Supply, and with this financial windfall, he went and got a haircut, and then he filled his car up with gas. He quickly realized how he felt about this exciting job and career opportunity. As the summer passed, Stan, Mom, and I headed together to Cincy. I remember walking up and down multiple hilly streets till we found an apartment so Stan could attend the University of Cincinnati. When I asked him, He always told me that others in his field were smarter than him, or that came easier to them. However, Stan applied himself. He read, he researched, he wrote sports articles for the student newspaper during the Oscar Robinson NCAA times, ultimately graduating in 1963 summa cum laude. I believe he got 1B in his college career. Stan never looked back except for the love of his life, Clara Zahner, whom after graduation he did come back and made her his wife in 1964. Together, they were a great team. Such a successful life together, 3 children. He had a great career and a lovely wife in Clara. Another of Stan's passions was his sports addiction to the Detroit Tigers. As his younger brother, I found it necessary to follow along. It was fun that we had found a common interest. Later in life, Stan and Clara bought a home in Sarasota, Florida, Siesta Key, where I also had a home nearby. This gave us an opportunity to watch many Tiger games together, along with having many family conversations. I must say today that I look out in the crowd and I notice a number of Tigers hats, and I thank you. I know Stan would thank you. And not quite knowing where we were at in life, it was August, games are starting to count, and I remember we were playing the Yankees. 7th inning, we scored 9 runs. I called my brother and I said we've been waiting a lifetime for this game. Let me go back to where I was at. I just had to put that in there. In June this year, I was so pleased that Stan, Claire, Liz, and Edward were able to attend the wedding of my youngest son, Devin Tarschis, which was in Columbus, Ohio. This was very kind of them all to attend. I'd not seen Stan for a while. During the next few months, I had the opportunity to come to Chicago and visit him a few times. I vividly remember overlooking the tree line from their 6th floor Mather residence. The seasons were changing. There were brilliant colors in the trees, and over my visits, they were slowly fading. Somehow I found symbolism in this changing of the season. It was what was happening to my brother. Today, we all find ourselves here together. May we all wish him well. May he find peace with God's grace. We will always love and miss such an accomplished man, my brother, Stanford Taylor Shulman.
Thank you, Alan. Another beautiful, touching tribute, poetic. Please call forward Edward, his son.
Thanks, Rabbi, for the wonderful eulogy. Rami, thank you very much. Uncle Alan, that was beautiful. Steadfast, as the rabbi said, is just an incredible word for my dad. Steadfast, I would also add loving, loyal, gifted, in how down-to-earth he was despite all these amazing qualities. It was already mentioned that Dad was an absolute rock star in the medical field. He was also the rock of our family. We centered around him. We ate dinner with him at the head of the table, and everyone had a chance to talk and share. I cherish those moments. We all watched slideshows of his and Mom's trips that made us feel like we were there, and it was just great family time. We took a lot of road trips where he planned the trip, he navigated it, he drove, and he carefully packed the car so I could nestle into the way back of the station wagon and signal for truckers to honk. In a single school night or work night evening, he could do any of the following things or all of them. He could help me with my algebra and other subjects, by the way. He would give age-old obvious advice on girls, just ask her. He could provide a career insight, and if I had a sore throat, he could give me a throat culture for a strep test to bring to the lab the next day. It's something I took for granted to have a doctor in the family. It was just whenever there was an ailment or an issue, he knew what to do. His consistency was something I probably took for granted. I mean, he worked at the same place for over 40 years. He was married to Mom for 61 years, and was essentially the same guy, up until just the last few weeks. When I was younger, I've got great childhood memories. I'll keep it brief, but we started out building Lego sets together and little models, and we played catch. And he just loved being a dad. He loved it. He would share his favorite pastimes with me, including stamp collecting. I didn't really take to it, but I tried it, and he didn't pressure me one way or another. He just wanted to share it because he loved it. Some of the books that he read when he was a kid, like Webb Adams, he would try to get me to read Webb Adams. Even sharing the ritual of pouring sugar into our Cheerios bowls every morning and sharing the sports section. But whenever I needed him for anything, for help or a question, discipline, whether I asked for it or not, he was a model to follow. He was always there. Or even just an inside joke, just for us guys living in a sea of estrogen in our Shulman household. I want to mention a few things that he just, in addition to just being an everyday terrific dad, he did some major things. He stepped up in a major way in many areas. He helped me buy my first car. And he didn't just buy the car. He helped me deal with the sales guy in the whole sales process, which is an experience. He funded my college education. And he didn't just pay for the tuition. And he stuck with me during my academic career, which, let's just say, took some unexpected twists and turns. He believed in me, and when I graduated, he was there, and he connected me with the right people for an internship that really launched my career. And all the accomplishments that I've had, he has just been so proud as if they were his own. I mean, just lovely. I want to talk a little bit about how down to earth he is, just considering what a person he was. For as gifted as he was, everyone here, I think, knows how relatable and grounded he could be. We talked about everyday things, and the way that we actually spoke, he would call me man, like, hey, man, come on, man, let's go, man. And I just don't know if anybody, at the hospital knows that he talks like that. It was so funny. And he would talk to anybody. I mean, he would chat with Lincoln, the gas station owner, on the corner, of all things, about Michael Jordan versus Larry Bird. And he was on Team Jordan, as we all know. He would chat with the bagel store folks every weekend. He would chat with the valet guys. I mean, just would talk to anybody. He also, I think this is important to mention as well, we would often grab burgers and chips at the Barleycorn near the hospital. And it was common for other students or just younger doctors and medical students to approach him, and almost a giddiness because he had this celebrity-like status, and they saw him out of context, and they would always come up and say hello to him, and he would always greet them genuinely, and then he would immediately introduce me as his son. And not once did I ever feel neglected in these moments, for a guy who could have had a swollen ego, as the rabbi mentioned, but never did. We went to so many games. It was a major bond for us. Obviously, the Detroit Tigers, Northwestern football, DePaul basketball, Bulls basketball. After most of these games, we would listen to the AM radio guys, their post-game show, and we would comment and yell at them and disagree sometimes. And I've got a great memory just on the way home from some of these DePaul basketball games, coming from Rosemont, Illinois. It was kind of a long drive on a weeknight. I would get drowsy. It would get kind of late, and I could hear the sound of his jacket as he would turn just to check on me if I was still awake. It was like a whooshing sound, and I could still remember that very vividly. We've all talked about the Detroit Tigers. That was definitely in his blood. He's passed that to me. They were something very positive and, consistent, I think, for him during some difficult early childhood years, drawn in by Ernie Harwell's voice, calling of the game, filled by so many great stories of interesting players from a different era. I have so many great memories of this. Going to games with Dad was really the most special. It was time to be with him. It was time to just be in silence with him or to talk about anything. He taught me how to keep score, entrusted me with the sacred duty of maintaining a scorecard, which he kept extremely diligently, especially when he had to step out or take a call. He taught me the history of the players that he grew up watching. We would wait after games at the old Comiskey Park, where the players would hang around outside the stadium, and we could actually meet these guys. And it was just very quaint and colossal to meet my heroes. Some of them would actually give an autograph or say something, and I've got stories about that. Dad would hang out to the side and just share my excitement as well. I'm sure he felt like a kid. It was great. Lastly, about baseball, especially the Tigers, it was a tangible bond between us. We always talked. It often began or ended our conversations. Even if it was a difficult conversation, we would either revert back to the Tigers and then progress the other difficult part of the conversations. It was just always there for us. And I think that Tiger talk was the constant that matched Dad's steadfastness. When I was 10, we watched the Tigers win the World Series on TV. And then in 2006, my dad and I attended the last World Series game that the Tigers actually won. They didn't go on to win the series, but it was game 2 of the 06 World Series in Detroit. Terrible weather. We braved it, and it was a great time. I've got great stories about meeting Ernie Harwell with my dad, which is a great story in and of itself. Sparky Anderson, and many others. And we went to the Hall of Fame to visit when Alan Trammell and Jack Morris were inducted in 2018. Lastly, that was him being a dad, and I think there's an critical element now that I'm a father and he was his 80. He was just a terrific father. Someone whose own father died when he was so young. I mean, he had to improvise. I can't even imagine the countless times he had to improvise. There was no playbook for him, I think. And I still think about what he would do in a given situation, kind of like those bracelets, but it was like a WWDD. What would Dad do? Obviously, my mom played a major role in parenting and helping him become the father that he was. Really similar to my own wife, Kris, and what she's done for me as a parent. And I'm sure that he would deflect much of his credit to my mom. He was compassionate, loving, loyal, gifted, down to earth, and steadfast, in many other words. He fit so perfectly with Mom and created a family life filled with consistency, security, and care. He loved all of us so much, me, my mom, my sisters, and his grandkids. I love you, Dad, and I will never stop thinking about you.
Thank you so much, Edward. Thank you so much. Liz.
Thank you all for coming. I'm sure that our dad would be incredibly moved to see you here, and then he'd make a joke about sports and complain about the weather, and then tell us all to get back to work. But we all know why we're here, and I'll try to get through this. I looked up to my dad so much that when I was a kid, I wanted a Rolodex of everything that he thought about everything in the world. I could just flip it to any topic. I also thought that my parents might be the first parents in the history of the entire world to live forever. But that was child's play, and watching what he went through in the last week and months leading up to Tuesday was something that children should never have to see. A good friend of mine told me that when her father died after being sick, that she could then begin to focus on his entire life rather than the months leading up to it. It's as though a lens has been zoomed in real close on these last few months that he suffered. And now that he's gone, you can pull that lens back like a wide-angle lens, and these months get smaller, and you see his entire life. I know that in time I will be able to do that, and I have begun to do that. But right now, I'm seeing the last days of measuring morphine syringes, not sleeping, watching him decline, singing him Hebrew songs, whispering in his ear that it's okay to let go. Most of all, I've seen our mother move mountains to make sure that he stayed in his home. She turned her entire world upside down, yet he was her entire world. And yet, even in these last days, he was an incredible father, doctor, thinker, editor. Just last Sunday, I wanted to talk to him about Dr. Lisa Sanders' column in the New York Times Magazine, where she writes about patients' medical mysteries. Every time I read her column, I would text him to make sure that he read it, and 99% of the time, he would say that he had figured it out before the diagnosis is revealed at the end of the piece. Sometimes he would text, "Liz, I didn't get to it yet. Don't give it away." Last week's case was Bo Hunter's disease. He was declining fast, but when I mentioned the column, he whispered, "Don't tell me." Even days before he died, he wanted to continue to test his knowledge and figure out a case. He didn't read it, and I didn't get to talk to him about it, but to the very end, he wanted to diagnose. The sounds of his breathing was the soundtrack in my parents' apartment during his last week. Sometimes it was so soft, and other times it permeated throughout the entire apartment. Either way, it was the only sound in the world that mattered to me. Once it stopped, I realized the pattern of his breathing was a metaphor for how he lived his life. Until the end, his breathing, like his life, was steady and reliable. And when his breathing got more erratic, when it took a detour from the usual steadiness, I realized this too was metaphor. He lived a steady life with small, curious detours, taking me to main attractions in Paris, for instance, but making sure that we walked down the quiet little side streets too. But Robert Frost said that all metaphors break down eventually, and it's true. The difference this time was the detours he took with his breathing were not detours he had planned, and they were hard for him. Though I'm an English teacher, not a doctor, I learned from my dad to treat the patient, not the symptoms, and I've adopted this into my teaching, to treat the whole student, not just their behaviors. Different context, same philosophy. My dad is in everything I do, teaching, writing, thinking, but not Scrabble. I'll never be like him with Scrabble. I'm terrible at it. Debbie, though, is amazing. Here are a few things I'm grateful for. When he diagnosed me over the phone several times and was always right. When I asked him what I should do to handle the anxiety of waiting for biopsy results, he said I should start watching baseball. When he told me carpe diem when I felt lost. When he drove his Rolls Royce through a McDonald's drive-thru. When he stole bottles of water when he and my mom flew first class and my husband and I were in coach and brought them back to us. When I'd call him when I was studying in Jerusalem, and the first thing he'd always ask me was how my GI system was doing. When a student of mine received a stem cell transplant at Lurie, and he snuck me in to visit him when it was only supposed to be family members. When he made me practice my bat mitzvah again and again and again until I got it right, his unwavering high expectations. When he led our Passover Seder and my husband Tony secretly streamed a Red Sox game through his hearing aids, I realized and said something, and rather than be mad, my dad looked jealous, though not that it was the Red Sox, because he would have been listening to the Tigers. When I cried to him after being ghosted after a date with a brain surgeon, and the only thing he said to console me was that the medical school the guy went to was third rate. The medical school only became third rate because the guy ghosted me. Before the date, he said it was a great medical school. When he taught me to keep the writing simple when the topics were complex. When he showed my publications to friends. When I picked him up at 7 a.m. when he insisted on coming to a doctor's appointment with me and got in the car eating a Snickers bar. The peanuts have protein, he said. When he was just 2 years old, his mother, Clara, wrote in a letter to her husband, Edward, who was traveling for work, "Stanny is fine, though he could eat a lot better. He's very picky and particular about his food. I'll try to take him to a good pediatrician one of these days and see what he can do about it. He only likes chocolate and orange." He was 2 years old. It was exactly the same at 83 years old. And when his Aunt Esther wrote him a history of our family, she wrote to him about his father, who died when his father was 6 years old, when our father was 6 years old. "He loved you so much and was so proud of you," and Esther wrote, "The few years he was home after the war, he took you to visit us often. He should only know that his son has achieved all he wished for. We know that he achieved all he wished for." About a month ago, my dad told me about the sunrises that he saw in the mornings. Purple and pink streaks, he said one day. Across the whole sky, he said, and would move his arm. The day before he died, I saw what he meant. I told him about it, but I'm sure he already knew. Thank you.
These have been gorgeous, moving, poetic tributes to your dad and so forth. And now we call upon Stan's beloved Clara.
Rabbi Weil, Elder Gale, thank you both for being here. And all of you in your tiger's hats. Love you all. I wrote a poem. It's a very short poem that I want to share with you. But first, I want to say Stan would be so proud of me because I didn't trip on my way up here. And for those of you who don't know how it came to be that he loved his beloved tigers, his grandmother, Rose Shulman, who knew nothing about baseball, when Hank Greenberg ended up in Detroit, his bubby refused to serve dinner until she found out, how did Hank do today? So that's how he came to be a Tigers fan. So I wrote this poem for Stan's birthday in 1983. He was 41 years old, and he had it on his dresser all this time. And his birthday is May 13th in the spring. And while he loved the colors of autumn, he loved spring. And I love spring because it was his birthday. And I figured that's why he liked it. But we have to remember it was spring training for the Detroit Tigers. And we all appreciate, here in Chicago, we all appreciate spring for a lot of reasons. And this is the short poem I wrote for him. Have I told you lately that I love you? Well, I do. And have I told you lately that you're special? Well, you are. And did you look around and see that spring is here? Well, it is. And did you smell the sweetness of the earth in May? Well, it's fine. And did you touch the breeze and feel the pulse? Well, it's strong. And did you know how glad I am that you are here in my heart forever? Happy birthday, Stan. Love, Claire.
Claire, I'm so glad that you shared all of that. As I heard Cantor Gale just say, oh my, just all so beautiful, so thank you. Leda hireshit, uftirat tachlit hachayim kamasahem, kahalicha tzmicha b'shalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, life a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. And now the life journey of Stan Shulman has reached its destination. And so, O God, into your care we entrust the spirit of Stan Shulman. For you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us, O God, that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead for us, so that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, O God, we know will be with us as a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our lives and our hope in eternity. If it's comfortable for you to do so, please rise for the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. Cantor Gal will lead us first in Hebrew, and then I'll recite it in English.
Hail, Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechvona תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים קדושים וטהורים קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת שמואל בן איסור וחיה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו Shalom Hayal Mishkavo Venomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the holy and pure who shine like the light of the heavens, to Dr. Stanford Shulman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and within the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Please be seated.
This concludes our service here in the chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family plots at West Lawn Cemetery, 7801 West Montrose Avenue in Norridge. Shiva, as noted on your folder, will take place this afternoon at the Mather in Evanston, that's 425 Davis Street, unit number 602. Today, following the interment until 7:30 p.m., Monday and Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., and from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Please note, this information is available on our website for those of you who are online. Memorial contributions could be made to the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. That address both electronically and the hard address is located on your folder and online. Please note that all gifts will be automatically directed to the Kawasaki Disease Fund at Lurie Children's to celebrate Dr. Shulman's legacy of excellence, or to the Parkinson's Foundation, 5757 Waterford District Drive, Suite 310, Miami, Florida. That electronic address is here also. For those of you who are going with the family today in procession, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker. That sticker should be placed in the front passenger side of the windshield. We would also ask that you have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on the top of the vehicles throughout the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as closely as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you. We want to avoid any large spaces or gaps in the procession, particularly as we go through intersections. I'm going to ask the following to serve as pallbearers. When the pallbearers are called, I would ask everyone to please rise if you're able. Rami Yogev, Ed Shulman, Jeff Tavares, Alan Tarschis, Tori Tarschis, Tony Trigilio, Max Shulman, and Levi Shulman.